Hey guys, Jenny from Tye-Dyed Iguana. I've got a strawberry. Today I will be talking to you guys about foods that are safe, foods that aren't safe to feed your reptiles, and how often you should be feeding them. So let's get started. As I have right now, I have like a little piece of strawberry. It's a fruit, obviously. They're really good treats. Obviously, you know that they're very sweet. They can be a little tart. They're good to feed off, but only in very small portions. With strawberries, we recommend only once to twice a month, just because they are high in sugars and your reptiles can't brush their teeth, or in this case, beak. So we recommend just, you know, very small portions of fruit. So let's go ahead and feed this guy some strawberry. Whenever I say your reptiles can't brush their teeth, so basically what's happening is all the sugars in that fruit are collecting in their teeth, in their gums, in their mouth, and since they can't brush it away, it causes something called mouth rot, and essentially it'll create like holes and pockets of infections in the face, and it makes it even harder for them to eat and can be deadly. So always in portions. There are a lot of foods that you should avoid and do not feed whatsoever to your reptiles, mainly because they are either toxic or just do not have any nutritional value and basically are just empty calories. One of the things is avocados. They are good for us. Because of the fats are good for us, doesn't mean that they're good for reptiles. There's a chemical, can't remember what the name is, that is actually quite toxic towards reptiles. So avoid those, even though they're delicious. Save them all for yourself. Another food you should not feed off to your reptiles are onions. Onions are, again, very toxic. Another food item you should really avoid are any kind of mushrooms. Mushrooms are, good for insects and stuff like that, like the Herbivores, but for reptiles, we do not recommend mushrooms, just because technically all mushrooms are toxic, and although portobello, good for you, but in high concentrations in such a small body, it's not good for them and can be detrimental. Some of the other foods that you wouldn't think you should avoid and not feed off, but definitely do so. Iceberg lettuce, it's literally water and fiber. Celery is another one, again, just water and fiber. Same with romaine, sounds kind of weird, but there's no nutritional value. Cucumber is another one. Those are basically, think of like water balloons, that's all they are. They're just like, basically all it is just fiber and water. Just like onion, avoid garlic, and corn's a very odd one. Technically, you still can feed off citrus fruits like your oranges, your clementines, peaches, I was gonna say grapefruit, lemon, limes, I would stay away from. But like oranges and peaches and apricots, probably like once every 2 months. So like give them like small portions, but otherwise the citric acid in them can be deadly towards your animal and will basically cause that thing I'd mentioned called mouth rot. So let's move on to the things that you can feed about once to twice a month. So the rarely fed foods. So basically, I'm gonna list off a couple things that are only supposed to be fed once, maybe twice a month, just because they're either high in certain vitamins or oxalates that you need to have them in small itty bitty portions. They're still good for the animal, but obviously if you feed too much of one thing, it can be bad for your animals, such as vitamin A. They say vitamin A is important, it is, but not in large portions. So spinach is one, something you'd feed maybe twice a month. It's a good leafy green, high in vitamin A, but vitamin A toxicity is a thing. Mango's another one. That one's really high in vitamin C, so careful with that. Raspberries, another one. That one is mostly because of the sugar content. And then same with strawberries. I'm feeding them off right now, but again, I only do this maybe once every couple months. So they don't get it very often, but when they do, they love it. Now the thing with strawberries is actually they are high in oxalates, and You can have some oxalates in your diet for your animal, but you don't want a lot. Basically what oxalates do is that they bind to calcium. So even if you've put calcium onto your food, it will actually, the reptile will not be able to properly intake their calcium and can get MBD from it, and is also known to create kidney stones. So as good as they are, you gotta do it in small portions. Another few things that you should try and only feed every, like once a couple times a month. Cauliflower is one. It's mostly just fiber, but there are some good vitamins in there. Cilantro's okay. Broccoli's good, but obviously only a couple times a month. And I wouldn't feed the stems on those, just like the little what is it called? The flowerets. So yeah, there's just a couple things that can only be fed in very small portions. Let's go feed something else and move on to the things that you can feed about once or twice a week. All right, so let's move on to the types of foods that you can feed more often, so like once or twice a week. A lot of them are mostly vegetables, some are fruit. The vegetables are really good for you and can be fed a lot more often. So some of the foods you can feed off are, say, your bell peppers. Doesn't matter what color. So your greens, your yellows, oranges, reds, you can feed any of those off a couple times a week. Some of the other things you can feed off hibiscus. Hibiscus is a really good treat, especially the flowers. The flower portion of the hibiscus are a very sweet treat. You should try one yourself. They're pretty good. I've had one. It's surprisingly delicious. But the leaves are also good as well, so I highly recommend those. Bananas are another good one. Apples, pears, all that good stuff. Those are all really good to feed off in very small portions, about once or twice a week. So the last topic I'm going to talk about are your basically daily foods. So there are a lot of daily foods that you can feed off and still keep that variety up. Pretty much any of your darker greens. So anything like your turnip greens, your mustard greens. You can also do bok choy. Bok choy is another good one. Collard greens. I'm not a big fan of collard greens, especially when I'm working with babies, because that is a little bit more like thick and leathery. So I like to stick with like mustard greens, turnip greens, stuff like that. Vegetables wise, you can do green beans. Those are pretty good. Lentils are also really good. Those are for mostly like your uromastics and seed eaters, but they can be fed off to like your bearded dragons. Mostly leafy greens, and mostly seeds. All right, so that's a very small list of what you can feed and what you can't feed to your reptile. So yeah, if you have any questions about what you should feed and what you shouldn't feed, come check us out. We'll print off a little list for you, or you can always give us a call, or even throw us a message on Facebook. So we'll reply when we can there. So, bye.